Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Challenge All Stars 5 Rivals for RHAP podcast for episode 2. I am Brian Cohen. With me, as always, is my co host, Lasher. Ali, how are you?
You know what I realized today is
Hmm.
if you're watching us on YouTube, no, you didn't, but also you don't get to hear the intro music.
Oh, is it not on? I guess it's not on the YouTubes. Hmm.
Just a
We could
thought.
get
How are you?
okay. We could try to get that incorporated. I don't know. Every time I
Nah.
hit end recording, there's a little pop up that says drop outro music, and I always forget like, oh, should we have cool outro music for the YouTubes or the pod? Like, should we have something different? I don't know.
I feel like it's not very YouTube to have the music. That's for some reason pod friendly. Could you record then and just be like do 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 like you do a little
Might be.
riff?
Yeah, I don't know.
Hmm.
I've also always thought like during a very serious episode, like if something big happened, you know how for Vanderpump Rules they have like the serious slowed down intro music of and when they put it I want uh our music to be like slowed down into a serious tone when we're like, oh, this is like a big episode. And you got like the serious music. There's no time for joking around with like the Ali and Brian. It's like Ali and Brian C. Like serious
So you
stuff.
meant take out the music entirely because that was not
No,
singing it slowed down. That was spoken word.
it was spoken. There's supposed to be slowed down music behind it, but I can't. I'm not the great Will Simon. I can't, beatbox and get music
Mm.
going while I'm speaking. So, but I don't know. It's just a thought. I think it'd be fun.
I'm just hoping we don't have any more very serious episodes of the challenge. You know, like
Yeah, it
if there
doesn't.
is a need for that music, we've gone in the wrong direction. It's
It
happened.
doesn't.
It's definitely
Yeah,
happened.
no, but it doesn't need to be like deep serious. It could be like, whoa, it's like a big blindside moment. Like I don't know, like a big,
Mhm.
like when we get the tier 1 challenge stuff, which I don't know if we'll get on All Stars, but you never know.
Well, we did get one complete episode. You were right
Hmm.
about last week that was a star acquisition challenge, a
Yep.
classic SAC, and
Classic.
now we're gonna reset. But it is funny to have like Devin established for us at the beginning of this episode that not only do we as the audience not know what's going on, but they as contestants also do not know what's going on.
Yeah, it was very rewarding to hear everyone be like, "Look, we want to play the game. We just don't know what game we're playing." And we feel the same way. We want to podcast about the show. We just don't know what show we're podcasting about. So how could we actually discuss it until we know the game? And they feel the same way, and I love that. And that's, it's a very symbiotic relationship we got going on.
Challengers, they're just like us.
Hmm.
So then we cut to party animals, Adam and Steve drilling equations, and Steve is like, everyone's got that person. I don't know that everyone does. I felt very seen. Like 20 years can go by, and instead of like you pick up right where you left off, he's like, you hate everything you hated about them 20 years ago.
Yeah, it's the opposite of graduation goggles, I guess, right? Like you think you would see them so wonderfully, but actually no, you hate everything. Adam and Steve are so interesting. I would love if I get a chance to talk with Steve, I would, or even both of them. I would love to know, especially for Steve, how much did he realize Adam hated him? Like, did he pick that up along the way, or did he have to be told, like, wow, you guys are real beef? He's like, what? I just stole a star. Like, I would love to know how much Steve really knew about the disdain that Adam had for him.
Yeah, to close the loop on that from last week, we were sort of complaining like why, they're only making it about the star when really the real beef seems like it should be based on what Adam was saying in confessionals about him. And the great Facebook group informed us that this season filmed before All Stars finished airing.
Yep.
So Derek Boucher and Edmo let us know filming began May 25th. All Stars 4 episode 8 aired May 22nd. In episode 8, Adam still has a star. It was taken on episode 10. It is unfathomable to me that they wouldn't show some clips to Adam like in
Mm-hmm.
advance of showing up here. Like, sure, filming began May 25th and the episode aired after that, but like it had to have been in the can. All Stars 4 was in
You
the
think?
can for 10 years. Like, they couldn't show him some relevant clips.
Yeah, I, mean, I don't know. In Sequester, did they get to binge the prior All Star season before this? I'm so curious. I'm so curious if Steve was under the revelation that their beef was more than just him stealing the star. I mean, he had to have been. Maybe I don't know. Maybe it came up in conversation. They, when they're in the house talking about things that comes up. I don't know.
I mean, there's nothing on the episode so far, 1 and 2, that if anything, the episodes 1 and 2 make it seem like Steve has no idea of, like, additional shit Adam would have talked. And frankly, like, why would Adam say, "By the way, I talked a lot of shit about you in confessional"? Like, Adam,
Right.
at least from the edit, seems he's totally justified and continues to feel justified. My question is, where do you think, I mean, we say there's no edit and we don't read like the overall season arc, but where do you think like the Adam and Steve arc is going? Because aside from Janae and Beth, I feel like the edit has really been emphasizing Adam and Steve as like the biggest real feud on the show.
And also, like, the biggest threat. Like, I know they won the first daily, but I wouldn't still be coming away with them being like, oh my God, Adam and Steve, we got to get them out there, like the huge threat. Now, there was some mention about Fessel and Amber later on, but it did seem like Adam and Steve were like the big kahuna that I'd be focused on. I don't know. This could maybe it's just like their season and they're like the biggest pair in terms of their feud, in terms of the threat level. I mean, it's very much like one of the few pairings that's very much lives in the all-star world, so they're trying to like keep the all-star bubble itself. Like Adam and Steve very much are that, as opposed to some of the other pairings, so maybe they just want to try to milk that for as much as they can. But I think they're probably going to be here for a while.
Yeah, I think we're getting hammered in with their feud more so because they're going to be there for a while and have to sort of like work through it. I think they like at least having one pair with a storyline like that. I think that's the goal generally for a rival season. So I think that's going to be our pair, especially with what happens with Beth and Janae this episode. As far as like threat level, I agree, that surprised me too. Like I would probably put them in the top half, top third of like people I'd think would do well on a challenge based on the pairings, but I wouldn't say they're the number one threat. I think all the other star holders plus Fessel and Amber B are probably equal to them. I do wonder, and we got some questions about this, we didn't talk about it in episode 1, if people are looking at male teams as a bigger threat. Leroy and Devin have to be up there too in that conversation, but I don't know how the cast is perceiving, the gender imbalance across the teams.
Yeah, it's a good question. Right now, they're skewing them being targeted as them having the least connections, was how a lot of people were trying to push it. Like, oh, let's throw in Adam and Steve. Because A, they're big threats, but also they don't really have supposedly don't really have a lot of people supporting them, which obviously turned out to not really be the case. But that was how people like Frank were trying to push it. I don't think it would necessarily be because they're male. They have to go out. I think they're a threat, just like Fessel and Amber B are a threat. I think they're just a strong team, and I think they have to know like they're not going to be in an elimination doing a lot of like hall brawls where it's like Steve running through John A. Not John A at this point, but like, that's just not going to happen. Like it's going to be these types of eliminations, which are physical, but not like hand-to-hand physical. So I think they can understand that and make adjustments about how to.
Yeah, and I think these two, the daily and the final elimination, are interesting. The final elimination and the elimination are interesting ones to talk about when you're considering sort of the gender makeup of the teams. And a lot to say about the Frank issue, but let's get to the daily, I guess. I mean, the thing that is hilarious that like I think we have to discuss is the Veronica, Beth, Nicole situation. And what frustrated me about this moment was I feel like the edit was trying to use this as an example of like, look at how Nicole gets herself into trouble. She has a big mouth. She like makes problems with people. Far be it for me to find a reason to defend Nicole, but this is one of it. Like this Nicole heckling Beth that she has 30-year-old jeans was a very, very funny part of the episode.
Yeah, I thought this was the most endearing thing Nicole's done in maybe the history of her time on TV. It was just, if this is the thing that gets Nicole in hot water, I mean, she's done tenfold much worse than this. This was like a very old school, funny comedy bit challenge feud. I'd be like, oh, look at your jeans, they're so old, they're 30-year-old jeans, but also making light of it, like, oh, she got great use of the jeans. She wore it for 30 years. It was probably came out to like a half a cent a wear based off the ratio. So good for her to get that usage out. And also, I don't know, maybe I'm also not the king of fashion, but those jeans seem perfectly fine. Obviously, if you're told to be they're 30 years old, it's one thing, but it didn't seem to be so outrageous if I just saw someone wearing them.
Yeah, I mean, if she could still fit in her jeans from 30 years ago, like that's just, good for her, whatever. I'm
Slay.
sorry for saying something about her 30-year-old jeans. I was dying. Like, yeah, that was great. She got her money's worth is a nice insult to use. It's like a nice double-edged sword.
Mhm.
But let's get to the daily. I mean, really the theme of the episode is Nicole does nothing wrong and gets herself into trouble. So defend her on the jeans. We could talk
Yeah.
about the daily.
So I would say a pretty controversial daily the way it goes down. So Edge of Glory, classic challenge daily though. Heights challenge, relying on your partner to hold you up. You have the first, which seemed pretty useless. I don't understand the point of it, but just solve a math equation just to do nothing. I thought the math equation was going to tie to the flags you have to grab, but no, you just solve some type of math equation, and then you have to reach out across a very tall tower with your partner holding you back and try to grab. I believe it was 4 flags was the maximum you can get. The 4th being very far out to the edge of the tower to the point where some teams would have to just jump off to even grab it. But there was grabbing the flags was really the point of this daily.
Yeah, and this is one where I think having a partnership with a size differential, a weight differential was helpful, right? Where we see Steve and Adam have to like jump, which is far scarier to jump off the edge of a building to get the last flag, whereas Fessel's able to support Amber's full weight when she goes into a full plank position over the open floor.
Yep.
So, again, that's another time where I think it's not necessarily an advantage to have like a two men on your team.
Mm-hmm.
Like let's not bury the lead. Let's talk about how this ends because I think spoiler alert, this is the most bullshit thing I've ever seen on a reality TV show. But like you
So,
thought Karma Vote was bad. This was horrific to me. They should be sued. No, not really bad. Like, but
so
I thought this was insane.
So there's 2 things that are quite horrific. First is just how the daily progresses, and I think this is like the obvious point, but it needs to be made. This is the problem when you have a structure of a game of the challenge where last place doesn't go straight into elimination because
Yep.
you have people that are like, "There's literally no downside for me not doing this. I don't care. I hate heights. I just saw one team do decently well. I'm not going to beat them. I don't even care to win because I don't even want to get the blood on my hands to like maybe make a vote and do anything. So I'm just not going to try." And unfortunately, that's why Eddie's challenge season doesn't have last place go in. It just creates so many situations for these dailies to be gamed, to be people not giving their full effort, for so many different things to go wrong through a daily where you don't have last place going straight in. And I was waiting for the point of TJ being like wanting to change the rules on the fly because he gets disgusted from them, not from like the an entertainment factor like as we would be. He gets more, I think, disgusted from just like the competitive of like, how could you not try? This is like an insult to me. So I wanted him to almost rail into them more. I think he got derailed a little bit to the point you're about to make about the last 3 teams, but I wish he honestly insulted them more throughout this daily.
Yeah. So I jumped ahead. I mean, I think what you're saying, we forgot to say. I didn't let us establish what we do learn, which is the format of the season. It's something mind blowing, but let's set it up. Cause yeah, that was my first thought too, was like, this is going to be a problem. The problem was immediately shown.
Immediate.
And like, you could just, well, not really. I was going to say you could prevent it a little bit by having them, I don't know, sequestered so they can't see the results of everybody else. Like, it's just better to have the losing team go in. But what's going to happen is there's going to be a challenge. There's going to be one winning team. Their star is safe. They're safe from elimination. Everybody else is up for elimination. There'll be a house vote. And the winner of the daily will choose the other team that'll go in. You could self-nominate, as we've seen in the past. And if you defeat the star holding team, you get their star. If you just win an elimination, you can steal a star. And what we learned this episode is, unlike last season, I think, the last time we saw this, if you win the elimination as a star holder, you do not steal the star and give it to someone else.
That's a great point. What did he say about that? Is the star just like lost to the abyss and it'll just be won by the next daily, I guess?
Well, I don't think there's one. I think like Steve and Adam, spoiler alert, win. They keep their star. The world stays the same.
Yes, that was the case last time, though.
I thought no, if you won even with a star, you stole it and gave it to someone else. I thought.
No, that would only if you were going against another star holder. So like,
okay, never mind then. I'm inventing that. I feel like maybe I'm just thinking of the last half where there were like way more star on star violence.
I think so. I think it would be if 2 star holders went against each other and one of them win, you like the winning team replaces the star that was
Yeah,
lost
okay, that makes
to a new
sense.
team, which they
Because
didn't
then,
establish here, but I would assume is the rule. I don't think TJ
yeah.
said that, but I would think that has to be what will go down.
Then why? No, because didn't we say, like, even when Leroy had a star, would he go in so that he could steal a star to give it to Cam? Oh, it was because it was a men's versus women's day.
Right.
There
that
were
would
different
also leave
stars
us
for
back.
men and women. All right,
Well, he
it's not
could
a
still
perfect
do it
analogy.
because if like Leroy went in and won and knocked someone out, but he would have
No,
to
but
get. I
I'm
don't know.
saying it wasn't just if he played somebody with a star.
No,
You could assign star. Anyway, it doesn't matter what it used to be. This is how it is now. Who
Yeah.
cares? I don't know why I'm pretending to remember. You know I don't. But okay. So as you say, it was a complete embarrassment. And like, look, I'm terrified of heights. There's no world I'd be able to do this. As frustrated as I was watching it, I was reminding myself that I was out there, there's no world I would do it. Like I would not be able to physically allow myself to do it.
That's why we're not on the show.
But we're not on the show. Getting to, I think, the biggest issue of this episode for me, I did kind of feel like the rules changed, right? It was like kind of getting rainy. The way it worked was they had 10 minutes to do this challenge. But if people weren't doing it, even when Sylvia and Kellyanne was still fighting, trying to get Sylvia to go, TJ would just randomly decide when you were DQ'd if you like stop performing.
Yeah.
I felt like that was purely to try to beat the rain because I didn't think that's my first issue with it. If both partners have not surrendered and one partner is still trying to convince the other partner to do it and we have 10 minutes, I should be allotted my full 10 minutes.
Yeah, I guess. Was it possible he was blowing the horn
based on Steve and Adam's time?
Yeah, based off like the time, because again, it doesn't matter second through last. Once you can't be first, you're blown dead. Which again is just points to the stupidity of the structure. But yeah, maybe that was.
I guess, but like, there's still value in performing, right? Like, especially in the first house vote. What if people are going to use some BS thing like your performance in the challenge?
Mm-hmm.
And like you want to see if the person would have finished so they can make a case. Look, at least we got up there and we tried and we did it. We grabbed a flag. These people didn't. I just think it felt a little bit haphazard and amateur to just have him blowing the horn and not giving everyone the time. But none of that matters because what happens is the rain becomes unsafe. They can no longer do the challenge. There are 3 pairs left to go. Devin and Leroy, Mel and Nicole, and Turbo and Nani. And TJ gives the teams the option to come back tomorrow or to just surrender now and give up.
Unprecedented. I don't think this has ever happened before. I don't think they've ever had a daily where some people didn't compete. So historic stuff. Maybe we should actually drop the serious intro music because we have an unprecedented event. We had 3 teams not even compete in the daily. It's wild. I mean, so based off the way you phrase that, I assume you think that the option was not really an option and they were not coming back tomorrow.
Look, I am sympathetic to a production schedule that is fixed, has limited flexibility, and relies on weather to do cool challenges like this. If you think the challenge was cool, whatever. I just whether it was a real option or not, I do not think that option should ever be provided to the contestants, that they should feel pressured from production, especially on a show where production can like you or not. And that can matter in terms of like your future. You want to work with them. You want to be agreeable, whatever. I just think the option being provided was, if you watch Tournament of Champions, someone gets disqualified and Guy does not let the other chef, he says, if I go to the other chef and I say, will you let him serve what didn't make it to the plate? You'll say yes. I'm not putting you in that position. Like, the production needs to try to project fairness and giving people the option to not compete. Hey, are you okay if we call it now? Or are you willing to throw off the whole production schedule, bring everyone back here, make us pay another X grand to rent this building and get everybody out here just so that you can go up there and freak out? Like, no, go up there and freak out.
Do you think, because it didn't, so none of these 3 teams obviously get voted in either way. we didn't see any discussion amongst the house. We obviously didn't see a production conversation. Was there some sort of agreement? Either the house made it or the production say, like, if these three teams are off limits, you can't vote them in, because it would be wild if one of these teams went home after not even having the chance to compete in the daily to say this. Like,
Well, they
was
did have the
there?
chance. They chose to sit out.
Well, that's the question.
chose-
But that's the question: is there really, was there really a choice? Right? It's like, I don't know. Do you think, maybe not production, because again, that's like, would be very much putting their thumb on the scale. But I was surprised there was not a house discussion of, for the
But
three
why?
teams, either
What's the incentive?
right, but I thought there would be something, either A, we should throw these people in because they just didn't have to do it or whatever, or B, we're not going to throw them in because they didn't get the chance to. I was just surprised there was no conversation one way or the other.
The house has no incentive to do that. It's not like, you're going to pizza, the whole house will get a pizza party if you choose not to compete. Or a better analogy for reality TV fans, everyone will get a bag of rice if you choose to sacrifice yourself. So there's incentive. The only people who would have incentive to offer them a deal are Amber and Fessel, who want to protect their win, who can say, if you guys don't do it, I won't put you in. But they can't speak for the house vote. The house vote could say, well, they're one less team Fessel and Amber wouldn't throw in over me, so I want to make them the house vote. So I just don't think that makes any sense for the house to promise. Yeah. And I don't like to assume the worst of production and lack of fairness for production, because this show doesn't last 40 plus seasons because, they muck about. But especially, and we'll get to it, when Amber and Fessel are edited to think that the only team they want to throw in are Mel and Nicole, and then there's a pivot at the last second and they throw in a team that makes no sense to throw in, you're asking us to feel confused, at least, and sus about how this went down.
Yeah. I guess also for the counterpoint to myself was, since so many people who did compete actually didn't compete, it would be a tough leg to stand on, to be like, you didn't do this, so you have to be thrown in, when like half the house didn't even try either. So I don't know. It's just very murky that, yeah, like you said, Melissa and Nicole seemed like the hot team to go in, and then it was like a rope a dope that it was. It was just classic challenge. Like 2 episodes in, we already got some like murky stuff going on here. It's just it's frustrating.
I also think Turbo and Nani, like, I was like, oh, Turbo's gonna vote. This is gonna go to a vote, and Turbo's gonna say, I want to show up and compete tomorrow. And for the same reasons that Fessel and Amber were excellent at this challenge, assuming, if they were both willing to do it, I think Nani and Turbo have a great chance to beat them. I think Mel and Nicole have a very good chance to beat them. So I just, like, to me, when Turbo declined to compete, I was floored.
Big red flag. Yeah.
I remain floored. That, like, this has to be in the exit. I mean, I'm so curious to find out what happened here, or if anyone's going to say anything about it.
No exit press from me, though. No exit press from me. But we'd love to know. We'd love to know. Good for Fessel and Amber B, though. They get the win.
No, not good for them. Biggest asterisk I've ever seen in my life. Like,
Fessel is the king of winning. He's the king of winning dailies with asterisks, especially earlier in the season, especially like the first actual daily of the season. This is his strong suit, is winning a daily where there's a big old asterisk next to it.
I wonder if this is going to affect future challenge design challenges. Because, like, again, and I'm being harsh on production, this is certainly not the outcome they want. They don't want this.
No.
But yeah, like, you can't do a challenge dependent on weather that you cannot continue or pick up later or the next day. Like, this can't happen.
Yikes.
Speaking of huge miscalculations, let's talk about Frank, which you were setting up. I mean, anything else from the challenge? I'm just like,
I mean, it was surprising how many people just didn't do it. Like, I understand, like, you can't risk going in, but there's like a sense of pride, I feel like, to doing it. Like, you go all this way, you leave your family, you're doing all this stuff, you have like this chance to you're on the show seemingly because you like to do these types of things. And I understand maybe 1 or 2 people are like freaked out, but it was unbelievable how many people just refused to do this. It was stunning to see just team after team after team just be like, nah, like that. It was wild. It
was a flop Tina for sure.
Yeah.
All right. So speaking of flop Tina, another amazing segue to the same moment. So Frank does pitch as you said, that let's target Adam and Steve because they have the least amount of connections. I think Frank kind of smartly says to Cameron confessional, I'm not going to be able to play a physically dominant game, so I need to like get out ahead of the socially dominant game. But what I didn't understand from Frank is like, he's completely wrong. Adam and Steve seem to be the most connected team, or in the top 3 most connected teams. It immediately gets back to them. Granted, not at Frank's cost, but still. And B, like, Frank, because you feel like you're not on a physically dominant team, get together with the other non-physically dominant teams and say, we need to target Adam Steve because they're the biggest threats in the house.
So I thought that would be the better pitch for sure. But I think that's a pitch that was more likely to blow up in his face because I think it was smart the way he tried to spin it. Because I think in his head, he wants to get them out because they're a strong team. But he doesn't want to frame it like that because that would set off the alarms to Leroy and Devin, Fessel and Amber, Turbo and Nany, that he's then going after them next. But if you can frame it as, let's just get them out because they don't really have much connections, that works for him because then he can still keep his cover of like, oh, wanting to work with some of the stronger people, but still get one of the stronger people out. So I do like the way he framed it, but it just did not work because he wildly miscalculated where Adam and Steve stand in the house.
I think he's saying it to the right audience in this case because I think Nicole and Mel are there, or Nicole's there, but Nicole and Mel, Ashley is Ashley and Anissa, and Nany of Nany and Turbo. And I think it's a risk, but yeah, maybe it's revisionist history here for me to be like, it's less of a risk to that audience than the fact that he ends up saying it to people who are working with Adam and Steve and Nicole. So, you know, it's not, but I guess I shouldn't criticize him because it does not blow up in his face in the slightest.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Yeah, because of how many people claim to want to work with Adam and Steve, they got 9 of the 11 votes. So it's not like there was a lot of protecting them.
It's also weird. So, like, the way Amber does come over, and, you know, she's smart. She doesn't want to weigh in on Adam and Steve because she clocks that Nicole's there, and that's one of their biggest, you know, allies. But then, she was almost there. She tells Veronica, and Veronica's like, Adam and Steve are my closest friends. So she goes to deliver sort of half of the information to Adam that Frank or someone is putting their name out. I do think from an editing perspective, it became very hard to follow what was going on. If Veronica and Adam are so close, why doesn't Adam just ask Veronica who's saying his name? Why doesn't he try to campaign for votes instead of campaigning to not be the House vote? Or sorry, if Nicole is so tight with Adam, why doesn't Nicole go to Adam and say, who leaked? Can you help me? Because we're good friends and now I'm taking the fall when you know I didn't tell you. I mean, that doesn't make her look that good as an ally. So maybe that's why. But all in all, my biggest question is, I think what you're saying is like, they still get 9 votes. Why doesn't Adam do more to try to whip votes? Instead, he kind of lays down to Fessel and says, I'm going to be the House vote, but here's who I want to go against.
Which also is not that bad a decision because in his mind, like, he has a star. So if he is able to whip the votes and get someone else thrown in, let's say whoever it is, and they win, they're taking his star because, like, they know Adam and Steve are supposed to go in. Let's say he's able to whip the votes and it's like Nicole and Mel going in. If they then win the elimination, they're going to take Adam and Steve's star because they were the ones that they threw under the bus to get out of it. So in his mind, it's like, all right, well, if this time the ball's rolling for me to go in, let me at least control my fate and get someone who I can beat and keep my star. And then it's like no harm, no foul. Right.
The votes he has to whip are Ashley Kay and Dario. He has to whip their vote they are the least connected people in the house. Like, he has to use Frank's logic against him. And perhaps that would have worked if people were taking Fessel's mindset of wanting to appeal to the stronger teams in the house. We'll get to it. Yeah, I think it needs to be parallel path. I think you need to go to Fessel in the event you're not going to be able to spin it, and go to Amber and try to get who you want. But I have to believe he had some conversations and we just didn't see those. Maybe because it didn't matter. It ended up being like a shutout, but I would have liked to see where his head was.
I did feel so bad for Amber though. This was a classic Amber in the challenge, like
Mm.
thinking, "Oh, this I got my good friend here, Veronica. Like I'm gonna like bite my tongue around Nicole, but Veronica I could trust," and it just doesn't work. I don't know where the disconnect in their friendship laid, that she thought Veronica wouldn't say anything to Adam and Steve, and she thought she'd be much more loyal to her. But it just sucks that Amber's like looking. She's been looking for a close friend in the challenge world for her entire career, and every time she thinks she has one, it like bites her in the back. This time it didn't happen yet. Like it did in the fact that it leaked out, but it hasn't gotten out that like it was her. I think that's coming. Like I feels like it would be shocking by next week if it doesn't come out that like Amber told me. I can understand Veronica not wanting to tell, like have it leak out right now, because if it does, Amber might be like, well, screw it. Let's throw in Veronica to the elimination. So I can understand Veronica biting her tongue now, but I can imagine it coming out by next week.
But like everyone kind of got what they wanted. Like depending on what Frank's objective was. If Frank's objective was to just not get thrown in, then he achieved that because he got Adam and Steve in.
Mm-hmm.
Like everyone was worried about. If you're the first one voted in, it's just easy to make you the house vote. The star holders are always going to be aligned on that because they want a star holder in the elimination to protect their star. So their mission was achieved. Amber seemingly also wanted Adam and Steve in, and that was achieved. The only person really I'm worried about, I guess, is like if Adam is pissed at Nicole for not telling him when she was there, even though everyone's blaming her. I don't know how pissed Frank would be that this like leaked to them. I don't think he cared. I think he just wanted the messaging out, and the messaging got out.
Right. I think Beth and like I think it was Frank that points out, like Beth and John A were probably like as great as John A is, like probably the biggest layup team in the house. So this is, in all accounts, probably worst case scenario for like everyone. Like I think everyone's worse because John A and Beth are out. Like everyone would most likely beat them in elimination, beat them in a final. They don't have a lot of power in the house to whip up votes. So it's kind of worst case scenario for everyone. I think that they're gone.
Yeah, classic Fessel the strategist. I mean, this was a horrible play. Let's yada yadaing the vote. It's interesting they don't show Adam and Steve's vote. It's a 9-1-1 vote. Katie and Veronica burn on Big T and Corey. Nicole and Mel burn on Jonna and Beth.
That's weird. Yeah, they didn't show them. Yeah, and they showed the vote count as 9-1-1.
Yeah,
so they missed one. That's weird.
I don't know if they just don't have Adam and Steve vote or they didn't tell him, which again is a problem. You have to have all of the votes cast so that people can operate based on it. Anyway, let's get to the jungle. I'm thrilled it's called the jungle and not the arena, like something fun, but I think we can officially confirm there's no good music on this season because another episode, no good music.
Yeah. Are you missing the cursing at all? That it's not on Paramount Plus? Has it bothered you? That it's just like
I just miss the music. I don't even notice the cursing.
It is wild that like the show being on MTV is making the music worse. I don't know where we went wrong as a society, but that's where we are.
So as you said, Fessel and Amber choose Beth and John A. What we hear the rationale is like they're in the old school. We don't know where they stand with us. Fessel says like to the confessional, after saying the entire episode, he's going to let Amber decide. He calls an audible, wants to make sure whoever they vote in, goes home. So there's no blood on his hands, fines, and wants to suck up to the stronger teams and say, look, we're willing to play ball. We're not going to go after like strong teams early. I just don't think that really jives with exactly what you were saying is like, why wouldn't you want Beth and John A around? They're not going to win the challenges, most likely. They're not going to beat you in eliminations, most likely. And if Amber has a reason, right or wrong, to not trust Nicole, putting Nicole and Mel in is, I think they're just as likely to go home as John A. And Beth. You know, like maybe they're more likely to beat Adam and Steve than Beth and John A, but they're still extremely unlikely to beat them in any given elimination.
Yeah, I just don't. There's other like mid-range teams to go after that. It doesn't make sense for Fessel and Amber just to like kick the ultimate layup and like most ostracized team out immediately with like it. Like no one's gonna be applauding them. I don't think this earns them that much good gracious going forward.
Nope.
I think if Devin and Leroy are in a position of power next week and they can get like Adam and Steve to go up against Fessel and Amber next week or whatever, I think they would like take the shot and do it. Like that's I don't understand, especially in a game like All Stars where it's not even like Challenge Proper that's going to go on for so long. Like there's only these like 12, 13 teams. Like there's only so many weeks before the final. And 4 teams are going to make the final. So there's only 9 eliminations. So you could say it's early, but like there's only 8 more eliminations now after this. So it is not that much game to play this time that you might as well just like you get a shot here with Adam and Steve going in, like put in one of the big guns and like, all right, knock one of them out. That's great. And like form a stronger alliance with the strong teams you're not throwing in, and just make Adam and Steve or whoever, maybe if someone beats them, make them be the ostracized team that's going in every single time and work with Turbo and Nani and work with maybe one or the 2 stronger teams instead of just placating to everyone.
To that end, should Fessel and Amber have done more to try to whip house votes for Beth and Janae to be the house vote so they could throw themselves in and get a star? Oh no, they wouldn't be able to do that. So I guess Ashley and Dario, so they could throw themselves in and get a star.
Well, no, they could still do it. Why couldn't they do it? They could do that.
Because if they went in against a team, okay, so my brain is just not working.
Yeah, they would steal.
If they just win an elimination, they steal a star. Okay, yes, all right, got it.
Yeah, I mean they could have. I think because that was we've seen that to like Total Man is like it kind of worked, and then people were like, "Well, screw you. Why should we like give you the ultimate layup?" So I think if the ball was going down that like rolling down that hill of getting Beth and Janae in, sure, but I think that would be very difficult to force that issue of like, oh, let's just give. And then why would the 4 star holders all? That's like 4 votes,
right? That's what I was saying. Ashley, Kay, and Dario. At least you could get the other star holders.
Yeah.
In line with you, and then like you're not voting, but that would be 3 teams votes right there. Yeah. Who would probably be just as happy for you to have that opportunity compared to them losing their star. Right. Yeah, it was a very confusing move. I agree, especially with who the teams are. Like having these like experienced people like Leroy and Devin and Nani like as part of the stronger teams that you want to like show good faith. And I guess Adam and Steve, right? Like they've got to be happy that you're giving them Beth and Janae. It's like These aren't people like Leroy, Devin, and Nani specifically are not going to care about this in the slightest. Perhaps a last minute deal was cut. Fessel likes a last minute into the elimination deal. Like maybe Steve and Adam cut him a deal and was like, throw us a bone. But it's not who we saw Adam ask Fessel for, right? We saw him ask for Frank and Sam or Ashley and Dario.
Yeah, like that was the cutting them, like throwing them a bone, and they didn't even. It's wild. Like it's classic Fessel. Now that we really think about it, this is just classic Fessel of why things don't go his way in the challenge. I know it's usually his not going his way in the final, but this is like Big Brother 20 Fessel making this type of decision. Like it's just so ridiculous. The more I talk about it, it's like one of the stupider decisions, honestly, in recent challenges.
Doesn't make any sense. And honestly, it becomes even crazier when we find out that Janae asked Amber in advance, like, hey, can you give me a heads up? Like, do I need to pack? Like, she's not even making an appeal. She's just sort of like one-to-one, like, is this going to be me? And Amber's like, no, I would tell you. I need Amber to come into her like Michelle power, right? Like when Michelle came out of Jay's thumb, she made bad moves, but she was making the moves.
Right.
Amber has good instincts. And like, as the edit was shown, maybe this isn't really what happened, is like, she let Fessel completely tank the conversation she's been having, the direction she wanted to go in, the people she trusts. Like, even if she has a bad read, a la Michelle and Laurel, on whether Nicole started this, that's her read. And Fessel's like, no, actually, we need to take a shot at people that you made a deal with. It's really crazy.
It's so bad. Everyone involved. It's horrible. Again, the only person it benefits is Adam and Steve because they get a win. But honestly, we can get to elimination. It was pretty close. I mean, Beth and Johnny put up a pretty good fight. And it does feel like this is the vibe of eliminations that we probably will see. I think we talked about it at the top was like, there could be physical. This was physical. It's physical and mental. It's obviously not going to be pole wrestles and things like that with the mixed gendered pairs. But this was still a pretty physical elimination.
No, and this, I think, by all accounts, benefited smaller teams. not necessarily like Derek Kay would have crushed this, but I think traditionally, if like women are usually a little bit smaller, a little bit more flexible, like I think this benefited the female team rather than someone like Adam and Steve. And I thought it was like a good amount of luck, good amount of skill, teamwork, physical, mental. Like it kind of tested all aspects. So I really like this challenge. And similar to something we saw in season 40 with Theo and Bananas, but in like a team gamified version.
Yep, absolutely. And yeah, that's interesting because I think someone said this, is this being filmed in the same location as 40? Didn't they say like they're staying, like the arena's like in the same space or something? So I wonder, are they keeping the same props and they're going to do a lot of the same eliminations from 40? They're just like, hey, we got these poles, let's just dye them in colors and make it this elimination.
Like I mean, the tube was different, but yeah, I think we see that on Survivor a lot, like a repurposing of objects. So yeah, RECY, CLE recycle.
I also, again, I'm usually not usually the best following the rules, but I was very confused when TJ was laying out the rules to this of like round 1 and 2. Like once it played out, his rules made more sense. But if I was doing this elimination, I'd be like, I'm going to need you to explain that again. Or can I see an example? Because I have absolutely no idea what you're talking about. It was a very confusing laid out. The game itself made a lot of sense, but the rules were very, very complicated. It was like a Jordan Kalish game. So,
Dragon. So Janae and Beth, after a hard fought elimination, they go home, and classic rivals style, Beth is like, we've really made up. We can count each other as friends. And Janae's like, I never want to see that woman again.
The unfriend and friend graphic popping up was funny. Do you think because Janae was like, do we need to pack? And she said no. Is that why they went back to the house? Or is this like, or they always, because normally you don't go back to the house after an elimination. Usually you just like, you go home, but they didn't pack. So I wonder what the clock out for next week, the next team that goes home, if they have to go back to the house.
Yeah, it's a good point, because otherwise they would require every single person to pack every time except for the two safe teams.
I kind of liked it though. I feel like they should have to go back to the house for like, after like the Are You the One, you get the perfect match, you get like that one last night. I think the eliminated team should have like the one last night in the house just to like, cause a little mess, throw some, expose some secrets, do whatever. I don't know. It'll be that better twist than the freaking karma vote.
I mean, I'd watch it. But we do get a little teaser for next week. We end the episode on an absolute blowout fight between Sylvia and Kellyanne.
Yeah. They do seem like they are really buying into the bit of being rivals. Like, I think when we talked about it coming in, we're like, I don't think they're rivals, but they're making us believe. And they really made themselves believe, because this was a very explosive fight. And it was like very mean. Some of the quotes that I think Sylvia was saying to Kellyanne in particular about, you don't really have a family, you just have dogs. Like, that is very mean to say to someone, especially like in any context, but especially here where Kellyanne was just, I don't know, they're trying to get on the same page. Like, Sylvia really went for the jugular.
Yeah, I think, like, to me, I wasn't aware of their feud, but like what they showed us in episode 1 was like two women being like, I hate that woman. It seemed pretty vitriolic, but like, yeah, it seemed like Sylvia was trying to deliver feedback to Kellyanne, and Kellyanne is just impervious to feedback, especially for someone she doesn't like or respect. But like, I could see how talking to Kellyanne and trying to work with her would be frustrating, because there's just like kind of a disconnect in like what Sylvia's saying, like, hey, you're a little condescending in your tone. And she's like, well, I never hear that from anyone. She's like, well, maybe not to your face. She's like, I just don't hear that. It's like, well, hear it from me. I'm telling you. And then, yeah, Sylvia, though, it's like the Devin Bananas. It's like, it's not the same, but just like, I was with Sylvia that Kellyanne was frustrating until Sylvia said, like, you have dogs, I have a family, we're not the same. Goodbye. Get roasted and toasted on Blue Sky, baby. Like, you cannot say that. You shouldn't even really think it, but to the extent you think it, you should know enough not to say it. And then I felt bad. Like, Kellyanne's like talking about her rescue work with the animals. It's like, Kellyanne, you do not have to justify your life to this woman who has kids and now claims your life is invaluable. Like, Team Kellyanne on this one. Rough road for Sylvia.
Well, that's especially because Kellyanne's been very consistent. Like, I would love to go back to some of my earlier notes, but I feel like when they talked about what you want to do with the money, I think Kellyanne has said, "I want to open an animal sanctuary." Like every single time she's been asked what she wants to do with the money, and I really want her to win the money because I want her to like be able to open this like sanctuary. Like she's sticking with a plan every time she comes on. I want her to get the money to do it, especially that to rub it in Sylvia's face. I'm rooting for Kellyanne to steal the money from Sylvia. That's what I'm rooting for.
Yeah. Maybe that's the baseline we're getting. Oh, that's interesting. Is that where you think it's going with Adam and Steve? That they're going to develop such a rivalry that then they'll share the money, and it's like, oh, look at how much they hated each other off of one in-game moment from All Stars 4.
Yeah,
years ago.
So we had that came up a lot in episode 1. We did not have a hint of that in episode 2 about the stealing the money. So we'll just monitor that to see if it comes up through the season. Who else is talking
Speaking of monitoring things, we called for a relationship czar, and a relationship czar we got. Nicolette Lindsay volunteering, produced an unbelievable record of the state of the relationship world, put it in the Facebook group. Everyone's welcome to join us and take a look at that.
Group. Everyone's got to join the Facebook group. What are you doing? Join it.
I'm more worried about the 5-star views this season. Like we've been pushing the Facebook group. Now no one leaves us reviews. You know what? I love the almost 1,000 people in the Facebook group. Don't join it. Give us a review. To join the Facebook group, send us a screenshot of your review and we'll let you.
Perfect.
Brian let in a little. Brian got a catfish in the Facebook group. Should we talk about that?
It turns out someone. I thought CT was joining our Facebook group. It was not him. I don't know who it was. It was no one.
The person with 75 Facebook friends who started posting spam in the group, and I was like, Brian, why did you let this person?
I don't know. So what you're saying? Like the Nigerian prince also wasn't trying to give me $10 million? I mean, I'm banking on that. I'm buying another house. You're saying that's not coming? Is that real?
And you're also in a relationship with Brad Pitt.
Right. Wait, I'm not? That's not happening? I don't know. You fooled me.
So
has Brad Pitt made a statement about that? Because that's crazy if he hasn't. Has he made it? Like, where's TMZ on that? How has he not been contacted about this yet?
I mean, you can't make a statement on that unless your statement is, I'm giving her the money because I feel bad. Like, you can't make a statement.
That's the statement. How does he not do that? I don't know.
That's a statement.
That should be a statement.
Couple of updates from the relationships are go to the Facebook group for the full recap. Adam and Avery current day appear to still be together. I think that's interesting to know. We'll keep monitoring that. Confirmed. You had a question about this. Dario and Ashley K during filming were both single starting the show. Current day, Ashley has teased like TBD, like you'll have to watch and find out. Very old.
So they're probably not together.
Devin and Michelle during filming, they were already together. Current day, still together. Leroy and Cam. Don't give me any Leroy and Cam updates. I'll be afraid. No, obviously they're still together and they're incredible. Amber and Chauncey. Now, Nicolette agrees with my assessment. She says during filming, they were not together. That's her nosy speculation from Instagram. They had no pictures together between February 2024. I assume 2024 and August 2024, unless you mean February the 24th. And that would be so specific. Anyway, between February and August of last year, and Chauncey was like training for a fight. In September, they started posting each other again. Nicolette is putting it at 98% sure they're back together. So again, we're just speculating here. And Nicole, interestingly, I love this update. Had a girlfriend, Kim, same girlfriend we saw a pic of on All Star Season 5. Also, the same girlfriend Nicole taunted Laurel with during the airing of All Star Season 4. Currently has a different girlfriend that's not Mel or Kim, but has not yet been tagged by Nicole. So
we'll wait for her to cheat on her during All Star 6. So we'll look forward to that.
So thank you. Welcome to the family. Thrilled to have you. Nicolette says she's self-appointed. Like, that's the only criteria.
100%.
You got the job.
Welcome aboard.
That's it. That's all I have.
That's it. That's episode 2. We'll be back next week for episode 3. You can subscribe. Rob has a website.com/challenge feed. Follow me on Twitter, CohenBrian_. Blue Sky, Cohen Brian. TikTok, challenge wrap-ups. Follow you.
I feel like I just saw what I would look like at 50 years old when I was doing this little jig. check out the challenge or hap up talking about All-Star season 5. Check out New Girl Old Guy.
Check it out.
We're going for 5 weeks, baby.
Whoa.
We'll know tomorrow if it's 5 weeks in a row. Should be.
Rooting for it. This would be so that would be 2025. You would have hit every week.
Wow. And it will be wrapping up season 6. And then like less than 10, fewer than 10 episodes to freedom, baby.
It's the home stretch. Is there any so
no?
Sorry,
what were you gonna say?
I was gonna. Do you think you would finish New Girl Old Guy before this season?
I thought you said, do you think that Kiva and I are gonna do something after we finish New Girl?
No, that I feel confident in it now.
Not because of Akiva. It's hard to do a podcast with someone 100 hours away.
Allie and Akiva, no New Girl. We'll be back next week for episode 3. Until then, have a good one.